It's about time we do another karate book, don't you think? Hi, my name is Joe, and welcome to my YouTube channel, where I review martial arts books and talk about other martial arts related subjects. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Karate Katas of Wadoryu, published in 1984, probably. The copy of the book that I have doesn't actually have a copyright date. Most sources I have say that it was published in 84, although the Goodreads website has it as being published in 81. I'm going to go with 84 because most sources seem to agree with that, but also I don't know if they're just borrowing from one another. So I do want to keep you guys informed on that side of it. Now, the author is Shingo Ohgami, and Mr. Ohgami has actually been training Wado-Ryu for many years at the time he wrote this book. He actually trained with the founder. Go on, baby. Come on. Come on, Harper. And at the time that he wrote this book, he was actually in Sweden and had been there for a few years. He says in the preface that he decided to write the book in English because most of his students spoke English, and it was just a better idea to get it out into the world that way. So the book itself is on many of the Wado-Ryu kata. It's on the 5 Pinan kata, also kata Naihanchi, Kusanku, Basai, and Chinto. And pretty much between each section on the katas, the kata in particular, he will go over some ideas. So for instance, in the intro, he talks about the terminology. So whether he's using the term soto uke or uchi uke for a specific type of block. And he'll go over, for instance, if a kata is known for having a lot of power, he might do a little preface on power generation. And these are sprinkled throughout the book itself. And I'm sort of split as to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. On the one hand, it might be nice to bunch all that stuff up at the beginning of the book, sort of the intro to it. But also on the other hand, this sort of splits things up between the various kata. So you're just not flipping through pictures of a guy doing kata all the time. Now, in his kata, he will, for the most part, there is a single camera angle that will show things at the top of the page throughout, so that the perspective does not change, which sort of makes it easier to follow along if he thinks a section of kata needs some attention because the movements or postures are obstructed by the view of the camera. Then he will show a different angle on the section underneath the primary section. And insofar as understanding what's going on in the kata, I think that's a really good idea. And periodically, he will also show different types of bunkai. Some of these are better than others. Get to that in the pros and cons. Now, the kata he shows are the Pinan series, as well as Kusanku, Naihanchi, or Naifanchi, as it is in Wado-Ryu, Seishan, which is known as Seisan in other styles, or Hangetsu in Shotokan, and then also Chinto. And according to him, the Pinan series are basically summarized in the Kusanku kata. And then the movements of Kusanku Naihanchi, which is side to side, Naifanchi, and Seishan, which is very forward and back, those are all summarized in total into Chinto, which he would seem to indicate as the penultimate kata of Wado-Ryu. Now, throughout the book, when he's showing the different kata sequences, Mr. Ohgami is very conscientious about letting the reader know, what movements he should be performing. It's not just like, pull your foot back and push this out. He will tell you the specific sequence of, step out your left foot, then step out your right. That's how you get to this position that's in the photo. Okay, now do this. And throughout that section, the techniques are also named. So while the basics are not shown at the beginning of the book, they are shown throughout the kata sequences. I think that this might benefit a student in that if you are training them sequentially, you're learning your vocabulary of kata technique as you're actually sequentially performing that, as opposed to, chunking all the movements at the beginning. Because the thing is, the stuff in kata isn't always the stuff in kihon. Kihon meaning fundamentals or basics. So there's a lot of movement you do almost exclusively in kata and don't practice on its own. And in this way, I think he gives the reader the opportunity to learn as they are going, instead of trying to remember, what was that move called, back in chapter 4 or whatever, that I'm doing now. As far as the pros go, it's absolutely clear how the kata is being performed. The photos are very sequential. They are very well organized. As I mentioned, you have the top line of the pages, which is showing step by step how to do the kata from a single perspective. And then, if you don't see it, if that perspective isn't allowing you to see exactly what's going on, you get, usually underneath the picture that's obstructed, a different angle that's showing you what's going on. I also think that the instructions tend to be very clear, and if it's important to you to know the vocabulary of each and every technique, including variations of, front stance, back stance, all of that is presented throughout the kata. I also think the book does a good job of giving further explanations into the principles behind the physical movements. As far as the cons go, as much as I have praised Mr. Ohgami for showing the movements, and naming the techniques throughout, I do sort of wonder if it might have been easier to have a set of basics up front. We don't have that. It's more what I'm used to from books like this, but it is missing in this instance. Beyond that, some of his bunkai are questionable. Take the sequence from Pinan Sandan, where, an opponent has grabbed my wrist, so I will turn my back to him and spin completely around and throw a hammer fist into the side of his chest. I don't know how that accomplishes anything. I don't know how deliberately turning your back on someone while your hand is trapped is helping you. I don't know why striking one of the sturdiest parts of the human body is helping you escape or disable your attacker or whatever. To be fair, Mr. Ohgami is not alone in this sort of bunkai, but it needs to be called out. it would not be considered very practical by most people, and it isn't. I wouldn't say that the book is full of that, but there is enough questionable bunkai in here for me to actually consider it a detriment overall. So, who would I recommend this to? I would suggest primarily for people who are, very early into their Wado-Ryu Karate journey. You're not going to remember all the kata when you start off. You're not going to remember all the terminology. And in that case, I think that this book does a pretty good job of, giving one access to all of those things. Go to class, study in class, but come home and then use this as a reference. Of course, with permission from your instructor, because things may have changed between then and now. And also, if you're someone like me who likes to compare different karate styles against one another, just how does Wado-Ryu do the exact same thing that Shotokan is doing? Because they both do the same thing except different. So I definitely enjoy it as a reference book for that. So yeah, that's all I got for now, and thank you for watching my channel, and I'll see you guys next week.